Right now, you see a lot of stories about what's called Pickaxe Mountain,
Mhm.
this underground facility in Iran that is taking on legendary proportions. And the money is that Iran's 60% enriched uranium is it is in Pickaxe Mountain, and that Iran has centrifuge capacity to continue enriching in Pickaxe Mountain. Something interesting happened just the other day. Iran unveiled a new missile, the ROD-3, which is an ICBM capable missile designed to carry a weapon, according to the head of the IRGC, which of such destructive capacity as to render our enemies helpless. Um, he didn't say nuclear, but the missile is of a size that could deliver a nuclear weapon to the United States and to Europe, definitely. Um, they've unveiled this. They said, if you strike us, we will be able to strike you. So Iran is creating the posture, at least, of the potential. They're going back to what they were doing before the war started. It's something I cautioned them not to do, but they created the concept of a nuclear threshold state, um, a state that could at any moment cross that threshold. They don't have a nuclear weapon yet, but they could acquire it at any moment and be prepared to use it. Now, this is very dangerous because they now have a weapon that's designed to carry a nuclear warhead ready to be used. And they say that the retaliation will be guaranteed if we're struck with a weapon of that nature. So, where are they on this? And this is dangerous because before the February 28th attack, remember, there was a negotiation taking place. Because there was, remember, Trump said, we bombed during the 12-day war in June. We hit Ferdo, we hit Natanz, we hit Isfahan. And he said, we turned it into nuclear dust. Turned the Iranian 60% enriching into nuclear dust. They got nothing left. That turns out they had everything left. We didn't destroy anything. Um, but the beauty of it is during that negotiation, if you remember, there was a period of time when Witkoff and Kushner afterwards said, after the bombing, the Iranians were trying to bluff us, trying to intimidate us. They said, we got 400, pounds of uranium enriched to 60%, and that's about. And I'm like, you guys missed the whole point. What they were telling you is that you didn't destroy anything. It's all accounted for, and they're ready to get rid of it. And they had an agreement to get rid of it. So the Iranians at that point in time had made a decision that they were no longer going to be a nuclear threshold state. People need to understand that. Iran made a decision on February 27th. They had an agreement ready to be signed where they were walking away from being a nuclear threshold state. That is the biggest victory Donald Trump could ever have asked for. I mean, that is a huge victory because who would never say it's a good idea to attack Iran, I said that the Iranians becoming a nuclear threshold state creates a legitimacy in the minds of people who say we now have no choice but to attack Iran. For Iran to say we're not going to be a nuclear, we can account for the totality of what we have. Remember, there were inspection procedures that were going to go into Iran to account for this. That means that the Iranians knew where it was and they could confirm that all of it was there. What more do you want? But then we attacked them. And now Trump has claimed he destroyed it again, but we don't know where it is. We don't know how to account for it. And the Iranians are saying, we're done. We're done playing this game. We're not talking to you about this anymore. We don't trust the IAEA. So they're back to being a nuclear threshold state right now, which brings us back to a very dangerous thing. Now, the Iranians could be setting themselves up for success. And what I mean by this is I don't know where we stand on the Strait of Hormuz tonight. Do they have a deal? Do they don't have a deal? I think they're still working out the details of the Oman, the third corridor and transit fees, et cetera. But let's say that they can get a Hormuz deal in place. One that I believe Donald Trump will go to the Omanis and say, Americans need a cut of your take because, they're basically, the Omanis are going to generate income. The Iranians are going to generate income. If Trump could come in and say, we've attached ourselves to the Omanis, so the United States now has the ability to generate income And that means we are part of the process of the Hormuz. I have guaranteed the Hormuz is open. It's a victory. Donald Trump is the greatest man in the world. I'm the God. You guys should all vote for me. I'm awesome. He might be able to make that argument, but we still have the nuclear problem. Pickaxe Mountain is a problem. Donald Trump, I don't believe, can have an agreement that walks away with Pickaxe Mountain there and the 60% enriched uranium unaccounted for, et cetera. He needs to find a way to get back to February 27. He needs to find a way to get the Iranians to back down. And again, I can't speak on behalf of Iran, and I don't want to, but why else would Iran declare the ROD-3 missile to be ready to go now, ready to rock, ready to go? The Iranians are escalating this. Why? Because I think that it creates an opportunity for Donald Trump, if he can get them back to February 27th, to say, I saved the world from the Iranian nuclear weapon. I have a deal that now takes the 60%. It's all accounted for, et cetera. There is no nuclear threshold status. We've resolved this issue altogether. And then he can walk away because now he has the two big victories. He can say, I solved the Strait of Hormuz problem and I solved the Iranian nuclear problem. But if you don't have a solution for this nuclear program, Donald Trump can't walk away. Politically, he can't walk away. So then what is the answer? What if the Iranians won't go to February 27th? What does Donald Trump do? Because he's looking at disaster in the midterms, staring him right in the face. He doesn't have the conventional capacity to compel Iran to do anything. It's just the opposite. Iran can destroy everything. Would he use a nuclear weapon against Pickaxe Mountain? Now, in the past, when according to media reports, when he's asked the Pentagon to prepare nuclear strike plans against Iran, the Pentagon said no, unconstitutional order. There is no justification for this. Pickaxe Mountain changes that. Pickaxe Mountain now becomes a nuclear threshold capacity. Iran's creation of the ROD-3 missile declared creates the potential delivery. And so now there is a scenario, I believe, where the Pentagon could actually say, yeah, this one we can actually, we can consider acting on. Would Trump order nuclear weapons to be used against Iran? He's desperate. I mean, this is not the Russians have determined that Donald Trump is emotionally unstable. And so I think that it's inherently possible that he could do this. I would prefer that we create the situation which takes the option out of his hands. I would hope that the Iranians are listening and will do everything they can to prevent the possibility of America using nuclear weapons against Iran. Iran at one point in time thought it was a good idea to sign a deal back on February 27th. And I know everything changed, the betrayal of the United States, et cetera. But maybe it's a good idea to go back to that. Maybe that is the best thing for Iran and the world. Would Donald Trump view that as a victory? I think he's so politically desperate right now that he could call that a victory. It's certainly a better outcome than what we're facing right now. But this is a very, very dangerous situation, Joe. This is unbelievably dangerous, and the American people have to understand that. And there's only one person to blame, and that's Donald Trump. I mean, this whole war was a war of choice. They never had to do it. If Donald Trump is going to say that this is all about Iran's nuclear program, we had Iran's nuclear program in the bag solved on February 27th. We had a deal. The Omanis confirmed it. A deal ready to go. But has resolved everything. We'd never be having this conversation. But he opted out of it to go for regime change. We now know that regime change was impossible, never going to happen. But now we lost control of the nuclear negotiation as well, and it's a wild card out there. And the Iranians, they're playing a high stakes game, right? It's not a game. The Iranians understand that they have to drive the United States out of the Middle East. That is the only way. That's the root cause of all the problems. And so they're playing a very high stakes game here. And I'm worried. I do believe, because we are so weak, that nuclear weapons may be seen as the only option.
Yeah, the latest on Hormuz was this afternoon that Iran said that the U.S. had to leave the region and pay reparations and unfreeze assets and lift sanctions. All the 14 points that Trump agreed to on the MOU, they're demanding that now in order to open the strait, but that could change. But are you convinced? Is the CIA, is U.S. intelligence convinced that the this enriched uranium is in Pickaxe Mountain, or just an Israeli story? Do we know for sure?
No, I don't know for sure. I'm not
Yeah.
convinced of it. What I'm convinced of is this: that when the Iranians sat down with Kushner and Witkoff and were negotiating about their nuclear program, that the Iranians had complete control over the 60% enriched uranium. They knew where it was, and they were ready and able and willing to present it to the United States in a fashion through an intermediary of the IAEA that could confirm it. So that at that point in time, it all was intact, and the Iranians could get their hand on it. Now, did they take it to Isfahan and get it buried in a mountain? Because the CIA certainly believes so. That's why you saw, that's why we had that failed rescue mission that was based upon Isfahan. But there's a lot of people that think that that doesn't make any sense to do it. The Pickaxe Mountain is a better option for that. But this is just all speculation. This is all theoretical. It could be anywhere. That's the thing. The Iranians are so good at hiding this stuff. It could be anywhere. Pickaxe Mountain could just be a ploy. They're feeding it along to divert. Who knows where it is? But what I do know is that until which time it's accounted for in its totality, the United States is going to view it as a potential nuclear threshold capacity that has to be dealt with.